Welcome to Talking Voiceovers. We're going to be talking to Chilu Lemba today, voiceover, TV presenter, musician extraordinaire, and other things. Haha.
At the end of the day, I think the most important role is just, father of two.
Speaking of children, when you were a kid, did you imagine that this is who you would be?
Not at all. I think when you're young, especially if you're a guy, there's that phase where before your voice breaks, when you got a high-pitched, squeaky voice, and nothing gives you a clue that you could be doing this kind of thing. So no, I had no idea that I'd be into voiceover. I didn't even know what voiceover was up until I was maybe properly know what it was as a career until maybe when I was 17 or 18. Before that, if I think about it now, we used to watch stuff like, remember the A-Team used to start with a voiceover at the beginning, or Knight Rider, and we'd see TV ads, but you'd never connect that it's a potential career, or you'd never even think about the fact that one earns money from those things, because at the moment you're just caught in the fun of it. So no, I had no idea. This is, I had no clue whatsoever.
So then how did it happen?
Wow. Well, for me, it happened, after I discovered that it could be a thing. It started out for me when I was working at a radio station in Zambia called Radio Phoenix back in 1996. And our boss, the owner of the station, the late Mr. Errol Hickey, was a voiceover artist himself. In fact, when I was a kid, there'd be ads on TV and his voice was so recognizable. He'd do stuff for like Eagle Travel, which was a travel agency, which I think he had shares in, or he owned, I can't remember. So when it was time at the radio station for the station to start producing commercials, it started off kind of like a community station, but when it was time for it to go commercial and do commercials and provide that service for clients, Mr. Hickey brought a few of us into the studio to gauge whether we could perform. And so that's the first time that I recall doing a voiceover per se. And yeah, the first money that I earned from doing this kind of thing was in 1996. Yeah, it was big money at the time. I realized that when I did a voiceover for corporate clients. So I think I was the voice, for example, for the Zambian privatization campaign, which was a big thing then. 2 voiceovers were the equivalent of my salary being a radio presenter. So I thought whoa, this is where I need to be. And I've been doing voiceovers since. Big campaigns, small campaigns, but that was the genesis of the journey, I suppose.
Did you branch from voiceover into doing other things, or was it the other way around? Obviously, your radio took you into voiceovers, but then you branched out as well.
So I did. And back then, when I started out in 96, you had to do a bunch of things in order for you to get a good living. So there were 3 things I think that I was doing back then. It was emceeing events, doing voiceovers, and then being a radio presenter. And when I started out, the most lucrative at some point was being MC for events. The voiceover thing was kind of second. And then as the years progressed, particularly when I came to South Africa, I initially came to study advertising at the AAA School of Advertising. But then from about the year 2000 onwards, voiceover has kind of been the thing that makes the most money out of the various things that I do. Music, being an author, emceeing, or whatever it is, being a TV presenter, voiceover just trumps all those things. So yeah, when it started out, it was just those 3 things. But as the years have progressed, at different points in life, at some point I'll do TV presenting or a lot of music or whatever, but consistently voiceover, if there was a graph, it would be and then flat line at the top, and then the other stuff would be kind of, at the bottom.
And you also did a conference for the radio industry in Zambia.
Yes, so the Lusaka Radio Summit, it's now called the Zanaka Lusaka Radio Summit because it's a sponsored event. So it's a conference that is an annual conference. We started it in 2009. That's when the idea hatched in my mind, and it became an annual conference. So last year we had to do a virtual one because of the pandemic. But prior to that, it was one of those where you're kind of fulfilled because you have people flying in from outside the country to be a part of this. Some speakers coming in from South Africa, Botswana, exhibitors coming in from Italy and Germany. And it was growing, it was having a good growth. Even the network in terms of the presenters who were attending and the radio stations that we're partnering with and the main sponsor, it's become a pretty solid event. And it's just a pity with the pandemic where things are uncertain. We've done the first virtual one. We're having discussions, brainstorming sessions to see whether that's the way to go. Because obviously we thought that 2021, the pandemic might be in the rear view, but that is not the case. So, we're still figuring out whether we do another virtual one. Virtual conferences, weirdly enough, are more work than the physical ones because you have to film all, some of the sessions, make sure that the stream is up and running consistently at a good quality. There's so much to consider with virtual events. Having a platform on which the event sits. Last year, we used one called Hoover, which is a US-based app, and you pay a bunch of money to get on there. So yeah, it was a learning curve. So 2021, we're still unsure as to whether it will be a virtual one or, I've seen that some conferences, what they've done is they've just pushed their conferences to the end of the year. I'm sure thinking that, by that time the vaccine would have rolled out and people, even in small numbers, would be able to gather in places. But at the moment, it's all up in the air.
At least having it virtual, it's more eco-friendly. Good for the climate at the moment.
I see you.
That brings me to networking. You have got so many contacts. Would you say that networking is an important thing to do in a voiceover career?
I think it is, because if I think about the kind of work that I do today, most of it is repeat clients. It's rare that I get somebody new knocking on the door. It's people that I've been working with in and out over the past 20 odd years. And I think it's important because what happens is once you do a good job, word of mouth spreads fast. And so a lot of the clients that I get up until now are people saying, okay, this kind of job needs Chilu. At the end of the day, you kind of cultivate a number of people from that network and you work nicely with them. Sometimes you even know what the expectations are. So if I get a script from director X, I kind of know that his style and his work ethic and his expectation is Y. And so I know how to work with that versus somebody else who comes in with a different kind of mindset, and you also maybe figure out how to tackle that. So yeah, I think networking is important. At the moment, I'd still say we're different in terms of the way we network to the way that the guys do it in the US. In the US, there's a bit of, I wouldn't say aggression, but you go into forums and you interact with people who are in our industry, but in the US, and they talk about stuff like sending your clients Christmas cards and sending them a message asking whether they need a new job done, that kind of thing. I don't do that. I kind of, let stuff unfold organically because sometimes it might come off a bit pushy, but that might also be our personality on this end of the world versus on that end of the world. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
Also, our post office doesn't work quite as well as
Good point.
Do you still have to audition then for any jobs, or do they just land at your doorstep?
Mostly I do not audition. It's very rare that somebody will send a script and say, please audition for this job, but it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all. So I do audition for, I'd say maybe 10% of the stuff that I do. There obviously websites like, the international ones, Bodalgo and voices.com. And if that's what you want to pursue, then you will be auditioning every day. And I think that's kind of how it happens overseas. People audition, then get the job. But on my side, it's people listen to the demo on the website or on SoundCloud or whatever, and then they know what the expectation is and they send you the script. So 9 times out of 10, I'm just getting stuff done. I'm not auditioning.
Yeah, so in fact, the platforms can be used as a way of finding clients to begin with. And then once you've got a regular base of clients, you can then stop auditioning. If you're just starting out. I
think so. I mean, the other thing that we probably need to touch on is agents, because in South Africa, I think that's more or less the formula. You get your audition or demo tape and get it to an agent, and the agent goes out to seek work for you. And then if somebody says we're looking for a voice that sounds dark and, for a movie trailer, or we need a voice that sounds chirpy for a sports promo, then they send options to whoever the client is, and then the client says, okay, we'll pick voice B And then, your agent gets in touch with you and says, okay, be at studio such and such to record that. That's kind of how the flow works in SA. There are very few people who work outside of that system who get booked directly, and very few who are able to get booked directly and do it successfully. And more often than not, what I see is guys going onto these platforms to audition and then get the jobs. Some pay-to-play sites like we said, I think Voices 123, Mandy.com, Fiverr, and all those. So I think that's kind of how it works there. But here, if one was getting into the industry, I think first thing to do is try and get an agent to represent you, because they know what the briefs are that are coming in. They know how to bill. They're good at chasing up money when you're owed, etc. So I think if you're starting out, first thing is, try and get with an agent, send them demos, try and get on their books.
I hear that quite a lot, but then will agents actually book newbies? Don't you need experience to get with an agent?
They do. I think it's the quality of your demo which determines a lot. I know a lot of people who've been absolutely new to the industry but have approached an agent, and the agent has heard the potential, because at the end of the day, what the agent wants to do is to make money. And if you've got a voice, even if you're a diamond in the rough, but they know that potentially they can make money with you, not off you, but with you, then they will do whatever they can, whatever is in their power to sign you on and push so that you get the jobs, and then they get the commission off it. So I think agents sometimes are treated like they're a very mysterious bunch of people. But if you think about it and distill it to what it really is, they're business people who need to make money. And, people who have experience are not here forever. Some of us are getting gray. It started out when I was doing voiceover. It was like, we need a young, hip sounding guy. Then after, many years, like, we need a fatherly sounding voice. And then I'm eliminated from those youngish voiceovers. So there's a gap that's just been created recently. You know what I mean? And so I think voiceover agents will be looking out for new talent to fill in positions and to make money off.
What advice would you give to a new talent? If not, go for an agent.
So I'd say, try Voice Bank, get your voice on there. But I'd still say if you've got a good demo that you put on Voice Bank, go to the pma.co.za, look at the list of agents there and try and send your demo, maybe phone them and explain who you are. One of the tricks that I remember somebody saying was call the agent and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I think my voice sounds kind of like artist Y, who you guys represent, but maybe a bit chirpier. Would you mind, listening to my voice, maybe giving me feedback and perhaps signing me on? You have to be clever with the way you do things. A lot of people, and this is not just with voiceover, but a lot of people will just blind send a CV or a demo without doing their homework about who they're sending it to. So, I mean, you'll have a radio presenter who will do a music demo and then blanket send it to stations, among them even talk stations, among them stations that might not fit in with them. So all I'm saying is do your homework before you send out your demo. And then once you're confident that you've done your homework, once you're confident that your demo sounds stellar, then send it through. My advice is don't send demos which you've recorded as voice notes, because I don't believe in recording directly onto your phone. I think it doesn't capture the presence or the timbre of your voice. I think you need to, if you're serious, invest in getting to a studio and paying to get your demo done so that you put your best foot forward.
Would you recommend getting coaching first before anything else?
That's a tough one because I never technically got coached. But what I think is when you start the journey, you're already, per se, getting coached with each session. So, I mean, in South Africa, I know very few coaches who would do their thing. You reach out to them and say, can you coach me for X amount? That's very prevalent in the US. You've got guys like J. Michael Collins and a lot of people who will go on a journey with you, pay them a bunch of money and they go on that journey with you. I think if you are doing your demo, you're likely to be doing your demo at a studio that has produced real ads. So, for example, if you do your demo at a studio that ordinarily produces commercials, that one session where you're doing your demo, you're getting your first bit of coaching from the sound engineer or, whoever is in the studio with you. And then by all means, practice on your own. But once you're in an actual session, the director will guide you as to how he wants the read. And so if you hit the ground running in that way, then you will get nuggets of wisdom spoken into your ear throughout your voiceover journey. So I wouldn't kind of worry too much if I cannot find a coach. I think the thing is to get your foot in the door. And then there's also a lot of material online now. Unlike when we started out, there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube. And recently, I'm not sure if you're on Clubhouse. Right now, it's in beta phase. If you've got an iPhone and you get an invitation, you go on. But there are like a lot of voiceover groups on there where you can go on and listen to these people talk for hours on voiceover. And these people are spread all over the world in different rooms. So I'm getting a lot of feedback and information from there regarding equipment, mostly with me, not necessarily technique. But I'm sure if you're on platforms like that or even Facebook groups, you can ask questions and people with more experience can respond to you.
Is that only for iPhones, or what is it exactly?
The way to explain it is it's almost like you log onto a platform with thousands of Zoom sessions happening at the same time, but without video and without text. When you go on, you follow whoever it is and the subjects that you're interested in. So like I'm interested in voiceover, podcasting. I'm supposed to be interested in fitness, so if I was interested in that, like really, really interested, I'd put those as my interests. Then it puts up recommendations. And every time there is like a moderator that starts a room to deal with a certain topic, if you follow that moderator, then it'll show you, a notification will pop up, and then you kind of log in and you'll just kind of see a bunch of photos or profile pictures of different people. And the moderator will be controlling the room. But then, you're in there and you listen to all these experts talking about stuff. Sometimes it might not be experts. It might be just kind of, like a casual conversation. And then if you've got a question, you press a button, which is like you raising your hand, and then they pull you up onto what they call the stage. And then you ask your question. And the people answering are like Hollywood producers who are on the platform, and so it's still in beta phase, but there's so much information. I mean, the few friends of mine who do radio imaging as producers. So I do radio imaging for, I think at the moment I'm on Prime Media station. So this is Eyewitness News. That's radio imaging, which I do for Prime Media. But then the producers who do the actual production behind those kind of things, they also have their conversations in different rooms. I found myself in one the other day and I asked a few questions from the voiceover side of imaging, but the rest of the conversation was so technical that I was, completely lost. But then because I know like Lindsay Johnson, who's based in Cape Town, and Linda Manganye, who's based here in Joburg, I kind of sent them a message and told them, you guys should be on Clubhouse and check out that room. And so last time I saw the feed, I saw that Lindsay was in one of those. He took the advice. So there are, like a bunch of very meaningful conversations that are happening on Clubhouse. And if you are able to get on, even if it means you find like an old little iPhone for now, which will allow you to go on the platform, I'd recommend that. They're going to change that. And I think it'll be Android compatible at some point, but I'm not sure when. And so, I'd say, get a little iPhone from somewhere and get onto Clubhouse.
So it sounds like it's a bit of a cross between an actual chat room and a radio show. Kind of,
yeah. And the thing is that, anyone can raise their hand and ask a question. So that's what's intriguing about it. It's fascinating. You should check it out. I think you'd enjoy it.
Will do. Yeah, will do. So earlier you mentioned radio imaging. What is your favorite genre of voiceover to do?
Man, there's so many. So the genre that I do the most of is corporate narration. Even just before this chat, I was editing stuff for, I won't mention the company's name, but they have like an awards thing online, which has citations. So in category 6, the nominees for blah, blah are, and then, you mention like 4 minutes worth of names, some with hardcore pronunciations. So I get voice notes to let me know how to do the voice. So I do a lot of those. Corporate narration, even though that's the thing that I do the most, isn't really my favorite because I think of my attention span, and sometimes it's just long. You just see like pages and pages and pages, and that's not really me. But yeah, corporate stuff. Audiobooks is probably the least favorite thing. I've done a couple, but because of how long those reads are, not really my favorite. But what is my favorite? Probably sports promos, because they're short and sharp and they're mood with each one, So if you're doing like a biker racing thing, the thrill of blah, 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 and it's almost like a trailer, but I enjoy those. What else?
to
Yeah,
do
yes, I
cartoons?
suppose. No, because the industry in SA isn't really there yet. I mean, I don't know how many studios. I think there's one in Cape Town that does animation, but it's not a real thing here. If you're holding out in your career and thinking, I'm going to do one at one point in my life, you're going to wait for a while. And the opportunities for doing those are more in the US. I mean, the production houses who do stuff, for example, for Disney and whatnot, but there's so many people who are vying for those spots. And I think you have to kind of get into that mindset where one wants the accent. It's almost like villains sound the same kind of, from the 50s up until now.
True.
And you've got those quirky characters. So if you're in that market, maybe that's something you could pursue seriously. But we're here in South Africa, those opportunities don't pop up much. At this point now, I'm 45. I'm not really kind of seeking them out, but if one happens, one happens.
That's always a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I do those, what do you call the explainer videos,
Yeah.
which are very different, but, meet Ted. Ted took a bus to town. He used, one of those, and then, they've got an animated character doing his thing. So I do those, but, those don't really count. They're fun though.
Yeah,
But
they're not characters, but they're
yeah,
animations.
yeah, exactly.
If you
Yeah.
could talk to that kid, that 20-year-old, what would you say to him?
What's funny is the 20-year-old me was kind of very similar to the 45-year-old me. At 21, I was the acting station manager of the radio station that I spoke about. So it's been busy and hectic even from there. But what I would tell young Chilu is don't be anxious to get to where you need to go. Take your time. I always used to marvel at guys who would say in January, the guy would say, I'm releasing my next album in March next year. And I'm like, why so long? Because with me, it's like, I'm releasing my album. Okay, I've made the decision now. 4 weeks from now, it should be out. And I was that guy. But sometimes a slow boil, a slow brew is better than like a mad rush. And so I'd suggest that people just kind of take it easy, step back, look at the big picture regarding life, and savor the journey. Don't just kind of, sprint, if that makes any sense. Maybe that's an abstract explanation, but I think that's what I'd tell a young me.
Don't try to eat everything at the same time. Keep a little
Exactly.
bit, make it last.
Yeah.
And then where to from here? What's your plans for the future?
Well, baby steps. I'm taking everything slowly, as per the advice previously. No, I mean, I'm carrying on doing voice because that keeps me busy. I mean, straight after this chat we have, there are like 3 pending sessions that I'm doing from here. One of them is for a TV ad that we did sometime last year with my family. You should see it. It was like a full-on production done during a level 5 lockdown. So if you search for Samsung Stay Home, Stay Safe, I think it was called. Yeah, filmed entirely by us. So that did its run, but apparently they want to tweak something now and reissue the ad, so I have to do that. But long story short, lots of voiceovers, potentially some new music. We've recorded some which is yet to see the light of day. And then back to our podcast. We used to do a podcast called Key Africans Unlocked back in 2018. And then we've been on a long hiatus. So we have a meeting today talking about how we're going to revive it. So, maybe March or so, there should be some episodes out. I'm not sure, but we'll see. It depends on what will happen in the meeting today. So stuff like that. And then, yeah.
It's super interesting. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And then there'll be a sequel to the book.
See, I was avoiding that. The pressure. Every other week, I think, like, how do I make the sequel? Because the first one ends when I get on the plane coming to Joburg. So it's a coming of age story, which ends in 1999. And I'm not the first guy to do it. So I've had some people say, why did you end the book in 99? And there are many reasons for that. So I don't want the sequel to just kind of be a follow-up, like now I'm on the ground in SA and then, because then that'll be boring. So I need to find a creative angle which still touches on the various journeys and the various stories that have happened, since 99, but not in a chronological way as I did the first one, because I think that would kind of be boring. So I'm not too sure yet, but when I do start, I'll let you know when I do start writing the new one. But there is pressure. I get that question pretty often, unfortunately.
And where can people reach you and find your podcasts and your books and your music and...
Yeah. So on all social media, if you want to find me, I'm there with the handle at Chilu Lemba. The podcast will be on Spotify. That's where we're targeting for it to be. Old episodes are on keyafricans.com. And then if you want to get the book, it's on audible.com. It's on Apple Books. It's available as a Kindle book, exclusive books, although I'm told they ran out. And so it might be a conversation of reprints. I'm not too sure. And yeah, if you just kind of Google me, it sounds so Google me. But yeah, you will find the information you're looking for. And if you're on Clubhouse, catch me there too.
Well, thank you, Chilu. It was super interesting speaking with you. I hope our audience have got lots of information from you there. Thank you so much, Chilu.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks so much. Salute to everyone watching.